Et tout le monde, c'est Facera, j'espère que vous allez bien. Aujourd'hui, petite vidéo spéciale. Donc, on est le 27 août. Donc, on va aller sur la chaîne de Techland pour regarder du coup la review de l'E3, de l'E3, parce que je ne l'ai pas vu. Donc, je crois plutôt que c'était. C'est très là que je suis parti parce que j'ai pas pu être là pour le live. Donc ça me fait un peu chier, donc on va regarder ensemble. Donc on a 19 minutes à faire, donc on va le regarder, ça va être de la réaction, etc. Donc je ne sais pas comment attendre. Je vous le dis, je sais pas comment attendre. Donc,
Hi everyone, my name is Timon Smektawa and I'm the lead game designer at Techland. Welcome to the Gamescom edition of Dying to Know. You can watch the previous episodes of the show on our YouTube channel. They reveal many details about the game and showcase unique gameplay videos. So if you still haven't seen them, you know what to do. Last time we showed you the monsters, our special infected enemies. So today let's talk about how to fight them.
Ça par contre c'est bien.
And not only them, but also the other big threats you will encounter in the world of Dying Light 2.
J'ai même eu des camps, mais...
Unfortunately,
Quel français pour vous, moi? Ouais, ça m'évitera du coup de traduire.
The most cruel and brutal species out there, especially during an apocalypse.
C'est pas dégueu, hein?
Before we talk about fighting, let's start with the basics. How do you move around the city?
Tu parcours.
Our previous episodes, you know that a large portion of the city's population has changed into monsters, roaming the streets.
Ça c'est bien.
That's why it's extremely difficult to move around, unless you can run, climb, brawl, swing and jump, as the best option to explore the world of Dying Light 2 is parkour. Let's talk about it with my first guest, Kacper Kowalczuk, senior game programmer.
Oh! En vrai, ça va. En vrai, je vous dis, comme à chaque fois, c'est très clean. Hein. Très clean. À mon avis, vous devez entendre en double. C'est normal parce que j'ai plus de casque et ma prise jack de mon PC et mon écran sont niqués. Je ne peux plus rien faire avec. Donc c'est normal d'entendre en double. Ça, par contre, c'est bien parce que sur Dying Light, c'est un peu de...
Because we took all that we learned from parkour in DL1 and built everything from scratch.
Oh.
It's a more challenging way than to simply upgrade it, but it's more rewarding as well.
Okay, but from my
Ça c'est bien.
And I think your perspective as well,
vous savez que dans le game, dans le jeu dans Dying Light 1, j'ai réussi à trouver sa photo.
And we have spent a lot of time and resources to make it physical and exciting at the same time. So, how do you feel about it, Kacper?
We really wanted to improve players' perception of their avatar's body and of what happens to it during parkour. The animators had their hands full, but it definitely makes you feel like a real traceur, which is a person who professionally does
Français, le français.
It's all thanks to dozens or even hundreds of new animations. It's especially visible with ropes, lines, monkey bars, etc.
Ah ouais, ah, parce que de base il avait annoncé sur dans le 1, mais ça n'a pas été dit.
It gives them a realistic parkour experience and is also surprisingly simple to master.
Oh, le grappin et tout.
The city allows players to traverse it effectively as soon as they get there, and
oh, génial ça.
Increases more as the learning.
Ça aussi dans le 1, c'est possible, je vous le dis,
There comes
c'est
a
possible.
time when players start noticing synergies between movements, and that's when the real fun begins.
À mon avis, d'avoir des détails dedans.
Literally feel like flowing through the environment. They also find out that the city itself helps them with parkouring.
Ah bah quand je vois la gueule du truc, ouais, c'est normal.
Becomes an asset once they learn how to use it.
Okay, but parkour can be more than just a way to traverse the city. In Dying Light 2, it's quite handy in combat too.
Yes. For example, I could stun my opponent with a powerful blow, then use elements of parkour to rebound from him and kick another one.
Putain, ça c'est bien.
He's also stunned now, so I can rebound from him too. By parkour and combat,
ça c'est très bien ça, putain de part. Parce que moi vraiment tu peux sur le 1, mais tu peux que sauter par-dessus eux. J'avoue que c'est fun.
So, Kacper, thank you for joining us and thank you for explaining us how the game's
Il donne envie. Il donne envie.
I believe you, the same as I, just can't wait for people to see it in action themselves.
Definitely.
So thank you once again. Take care. So let's talk more about how you can use parkour not only for traversal, but also for combat. And speaking of combat, my next guest is Matt Courtois, lead technical gameplay animator.
Ça, c'est l'animation, ça, c'est bien, ça.
Matt, ça va?
Ça va, merci.
Thank
Oh,
you.
français?
I would like to start with something that was quite difficult for us, if you remember, at the very beginning of the project. How to present melee combat in first-person perspective.
Oh, I remember. You like you just said, creating satisfying melee combat from a first-person perspective.
Sa mère, il a... Waouh,
That's why we
il a un
spent
accent, mon pote. Il est
many
magnifique.
weeks iterating it, improving it, until we got the right feeling. We feel we have created something special, and we're very excited to discover how players will react to it.
So,
Non, en vrai, c'est... Waouh. Les gars, là, je vous promets, je suis encore plus excité,
I
sa
guess,
mère.
you know, we've worked very hard for our combat to be visceral. So we created many exciting and immersive elements, such as what we call progressive hit reactions. So it's basically
Oh, nique ta mère, les,
some enemies will enhance
les
their
klaxons, là.
reactions. They will react differently based on the weapon category you're using, based on the body parts you're targeting, so you can stun them. you
Putain,
can
c'est
trip
bien,
them
ça.
over, you
Ça,
can
c'est
cut off
c'est
their
encore mieux.
limbs, which might sound pretty terrible.
it's also cool, right?
And it's also very useful and you know, glory. The direction of your swings also matters, and so does your position relative to theirs. We worked also with the professional stuntmen.
Oh.
More special, more spectacular hit reactions. That was mostly for parkour.
Ça, c'est bien, par contre, ça,
But
ouais.
also, generally speaking, to highlight players' power and to convey as much satisfaction as possible.
And I think it's safe to say that immersion is very important in
Putain,
the world
c'est
of
génial.
Dying Light 2. It's post-apocalypse, so it's very brutal and very demanding. So to survive, you really need to step up your game. So
Si moi, je peux, on me dit,
I don't know,
ouais, tu peux
maybe
travailler
you
sur
have
Techland,
some
mon
tips
pote,
for the
mon
players.
collègue, que
Maybe
je
you think
fonce,
there's
mon
something they
collègue,
should
que je
focus on?
fonce.
My best advice would be to be creative in combat. So, like you just mentioned with Casper, in Dying Light 2, parkour and combat are very connected. They're even intertwined, right? Allowing players to combine one with the other very easily, very smoothly. So technically, you can use the environment in combat, of course, as in kicking an enemy right after a wall run, or
Waouh.
even end, you
Ça,
can
c'est
use
bien.
the enemy to get somewhere you like. So you would just vault over them, trigger a double jump to get higher, maybe somewhere you had trouble reaching.
Oh, ya, ya.
But if you want, you can also just land back down, trigger a very powerful attack. It's completely up to you. Your options are almost endless. That's what we call creative combat.
Ça, c'est bien.
And to me, that would be the best weapon.
Okay, so that's an awesome hint, and thank you for that, and thank you for sharing all of the details, and thank you for joining us.
Ça, c'est bien.
We have used over 3,000 animations, jumps, grips, and other parkour moves to create a few dozen skills that can be mixed and combined, so every player can
Oh, le
find
nombre
their
d'animations.
own way to survive in the city. In a minute, you will see that in our new
Oh, oui,
gameplay
parfait. Je veux voir ça
trailer.
aussi.
But first,
Quoi en premier?
today on techlandgg.com we have another gift for you.
C'est quoi?
For those who are already exploring the Dying Light universe in the first game, we have a unique item, the Brilliant Hammer, a weapon from Dying Light 2, which you can use in Dying Light 1.
Ouais, comment on fait pour le
Go
débloquer?
to techlandgg and grab it.
Ah, mais
And
comment on
if you
fait?
don't feel like fighting right now, you can get some free posters, wallpapers,
Ça,
or
ouais, je
even
devais récupérer
Aiden's
ça aussi.
special outfit. As you can see, it's worth to visit
Ah non, mais oui, mais moi, je vous dis, là, je me suis connecté ce matin.
not at this very moment,
les gars, j'ai
because
tout fait.
now it's time to watch our new gameplay trailer.
Silence, je vais même couper mon micro.
Sometimes I wonder what this city looked like before all this. Probably like many others. People had their ambitions, plans, lives. Now it's all gone. The virus started it, but it was the people who made the world the way it is. This city, Villador. They tell me they had a vision. They had hope. But soon, one vision broke into many different ones. Instead of fighting together, people stood against each other. War broke out.
Was it a little bird?
Je crois que je l'ai déjà vu par rapport à... Avant, je crois que je l'ai déjà vu.
Now the city is falling.
Each time we strike down an enemy, we absorb their strength.
But I can't let that happen. At least, not yet.
C'est très classe. C'est très très beau.
Fuck!
Hey! Still some rats here.
I have to pick a side.
The bazaar needs good people.
You're doing great so far.
I have to make a difference.
Let's check and see.
They say that great change is a series of small gestures. How about this series?
Ça m'a l'air très classe en tout cas, je te promets, c'est... Waouh, impressionnant.
Is all hope really gone? We'll see about that.
Pas dégueu, pas dégueu, pas
The
dégueu.
trailer presented quite a few new tools of destruction that you will soon get to use in Dying Light 2. So now, let's talk with the people that are actually making them. Marek Musiał, lead weapon artist. Hi.
Je vais
And
kiffer.
Szymon Sztels,
Attendez,
the
on a
producer
plus
of the
de...
weapons team. Hello.
Les yeux comme ça. Ok. Ok. Oh, ça c'est beau.
Question maybe to Marek is, Marek, can you explain how we as a team have approached the process of creating weapons of Dying Light 2?
Yes, we wanted the weapons to be credible. It's been a long time since the
Ouais.
apocalypse, and everything of value has already been looted. There
Ça va.
aren't any stores to buy a new weapon, so you need to build your equipment.
Je vous dis, Dying Light va remettre en
That's
place
why
le jeu
we
du
had
zombie.
to design
Obligatoirement.
dozens of unique weapons, practically from scratch.
And actually, that was our design pillar, the modern Dark Ages.
Absolutely. Modern Dark Ages is this concept of fallen civilization that moved back people nearly to the Middle Ages.
Waouh.
So there are no laws, no rules, no technologies. That's why our weapons, we try to create them in a most deadly and violent way.
And working with that concept, where did you get the inspirations from?
Well, citizens of Villedor, they
Donc
could
la ville,
use
c'est
only
Villedor.
use stuff they found in the world. So we thought we should do exactly the same. We scavenge. So mostly we've been looking for our inspiration in stores selling agricultural, construction, military tools.
But also at places like junkyards.
Actually, that's true. So right now we
Oh,
have
yeah.
only 200 of them.
Oh.
And even though some of them may look very simple, we've got also quite the opposite, like,
Putain, mais-
I don't know,
ah, c'est vraiment
semi-automatic
différent.
crossbow.
I will love this one.
And our weapons are very diverse visually. Each one has a unique design and history. Just by looking at the weapon, you can tell where the maker found the parts. At a military base, a museum, a repair garage.
Ça c'est bien ça par contre.
It's exactly like that in the game. When you pick the weapon, you instantly realize if it was cobbled together in a street or maybe made by factions where they
c'est
have
bien.
access to welding and steel cutting equipment.
Yeah, and don't forget about the mods, because in Dying Light 2 Stay Human world, if you want to beat your opponent with highly effective weapon, first of all you need to find a basic version of that weapon,
Oh.
then slowly build it up. That's what we call modding. We've got many
C'est
types
bien.
of mods, like defensive ones, let's say improving quality of your handle, or offensive ones like improving the tip or the blade itself. So I don't think that right now we would
Ah
have
non,
time
mais les
to
gars,
go
c'est
into
génial.
details about that.
C'est très beau.
But in December, you'll all be able to add an effect to your favorite weapons, such as fire, freeze, electricity.
Shimon, let's stop here. Let's leave something for the
Ah ouais, vous dites rien les gars,
Let's
moi
end
je...
here. And guys, thank you for joining me.
C'est génial, les gars. Non, non, c'est génial, tu peux rien dire.
Before I talk with my last guests, I would like to invite you to participate in our UGC contest. Especially you, Gamescom viewers, we are waiting for your submissions. And if you are thinking about competing in the cosplay category, you will want to hear this one. Let me present to you the grand jury that will be choosing the best cosplays of the Dying Light 2 characters. Welcome, Irina Meyer, Lightning Cosplay, Narga and Aoki.
Oh, je les connais pas, mais ils ont l'air vraiment forts.
Crossed for you, our community.
Désolé si je sature un peu le son, parce que quand je suis proche de mon micro, voilà ce qui se passe. Mais bon, voilà, je vais mettre un peu loin.
My last guests will explain how the city itself affects combat and movement.
Non, tu le vois déjà ça.
Game designer, hello, and Adam Michałowski, senior game programmer.
Hi, Timon.
Ah, ouais,
Gentlemen, there's this saying that when you really want to achieve something, the whole world aligns to help you. And basically, that's what is happening in Dying Light 2 Stay Human.
Exactly. Based on the player choices, the world is literally changing and helping you to achieve your goals in combat or exploration. For example, the gameplay will be totally different depending on which factions you support, the survivors or the peacekeepers.
Okay, but can you give us more detail?
The differences between the factions define how each group can help us. For example, the survivors keep to the roofs and trying to avoid the danger on the ground.
Ok, ça c'est bien.
For building, they use mostly light materials like wood or scraps, and they can provide you a various amount of parkour helpers, such as
Par contre, on sent vraiment que la map elle est grande.
or ziplines. This
peux
can
vous
change
dire,
the way how we parkour through the city. On the other hand, we have
ça a l'air pas mal.
peacekeepers, the post-military guys who literally keep their feet on the ground. And for building, they use totally different materials. Heavy objects, metal, or even an explosive.
Oh, un piège!
And this can give you a new combat opportunities, like car bombs.
Oh, ça
or
rappelle les
even
bons souvenirs,
new
ça.
type of a ranged weapon.
Yeah, and what's important is that we don't need to remain loyal to just one faction. The city is divided into several zones, and it's in each of them the players can decide with whom they want to side. So while progressing through the storyline, you're able to shape the world to fit your vision
Il y a
and needs.
beaucoup devant sa mère.
Okay, but we know already that humans are active during the day and monsters come out during the night. But let's reveal more. What are the other differences?
Well, monsters attack mostly in groups, and they instinctively take advantage of the numbers. So to defend yourself, you have to keep your head on a swivel. Monsters don't use special tactics, but it doesn't mean they are easy. They push forward, so you have to be clever to avoid getting cornered.
Je vous cache pas que j'aime vraiment bien l'univers.
You have to stay active.
Oh, il y a la wasp!
And learn to abuse their unique
Nice!
weaknesses. And explosive traps might come in handy.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about humans?
They use increasingly more complex behaviors. As the game progresses, defeating human enemies and monsters will become more and more challenging.
Ouais, comme dans le 1, quoi.
But unlike monsters, people cooperate. So while fighting them, we need to closely observe not only individuals, but also the whole group. And of course, there are many more unique subtleties to both humans and monsters, but I think we should let the players discover them on their own.
Well, okay, that's a good idea. But all of that sounds very juicy. So let's end here. Guys, thank you for joining me.
Ouais.
That's almost all for today. You learned a lot about parkour and combat in Dying Light 2.
Ah oui,
Showed you
frérot.
that parkour is not just a tool for exploration,
Ça, c'est un mode de
but
combat,
also
ça,
an
c'est bien.
important element of combat. You discovered some of the weapons that you will soon get to wield, and you saw how choosing a faction may support your parkour and combat skills. Before we end this episode, we have one more special announcement for you. Dying Light 1 is coming to Nintendo Switch.
Super, il va tourner à 30 FPS.
Now, soon, you will be able to play the ultimate open world zombie game on a new
C'est marrant, ouais, c'est marrant pour ça. Par contre, ouais.
In June alone, the game was played by close to 2 million gamers.
Ah bah ça
Big
c'est bien.
thanks to our community.
Ah de rien frérot, ouais, de rien, on est là pour ça, on est là pour ça.
Dying
De
Light 1 for
rien.
Nintendo Switch will be released in Platinum Edition.
Ça c'est bien
This
par
is the
contre.
most content-packed edition we have ever released. On a single playthrough, it contains over 100 hours of gameplay, not mentioning the time you can spend exploring the world with your friends in co-op.
Sur Steam, je suis à 200 heures. Même plus.
If you are hungry for more and you want to support us, why don't you pre-order the game to explore it on your own in just a few months?
C'est un peu chaud pour moi en ce moment, mais je peux essayer si tu veux.
That's all for today. Thank you, Gamescom, and see you in the next episodes of Dying to Know.
C'est... Vraiment, ça donne envie. Non, j'ai rien à dire, ça donne envie. En tout cas, moi, c'est sympa. J'ai vraiment hâte, sa mère. Je vous dis, j'ai vraiment hâte. En tout cas, moi, je vous laisse, les Festrov. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner, commenter et liker. N'oubliez pas de partager la vidéo, etc. En tout cas, sympa. Je vous remercie encore, on est à 66 abonnés. Donc, on avance, on n'est pas loin des 100. Si on arrive aux 100, je vous promets, il y aura une vidéo spéciale qui sortira pour ça. En tout cas, je vous en remercie beaucoup. Moi, je vous laisse. Passez une bonne journée. Peace.